I've been through lots of experience in my life, positive and negative, but actually all those experiences are positive because they've defined who I am, and I don't shy away from the bad ones. I was brought up in a family with 5 children. I was the second oldest. My parents were quite religious. Grandfather, my father's father, was head of our church. I used to have to go and do errands and chores for him and stuff like that, and he used to preach at different chapels and everything. At the age of about 9, he asked me to tie a reef knot to put the loganberry bushes back against, tie them back against the fence that they were growing. And I did the reef knot wrong. So he took me into his rickety old garden shed and beat me with his belt and sexually abused me. He continued to, nigh on systematically sexually abuse me for the next 4 or 5 years. So one Sunday my father said, get ready, you've got to go with my father to another chapel. And I said to him, I'm just not going. I became hysterical and said, go and ask your father what he's done to me. My father came back about half an hour later and said, oh, my father's admitted abusing you, much to the horror of, for sure, my mum and myself. My father said that in the Bible, we have to forgive and forget, so give my father a hug, which was the last thing I was going to do. My mother, she became pretty withdrawn, and then she jumped off a car park and killed herself, I felt I'd been let down by the church, by my father, by the police, by society itself, and all the people around me. And I really looked at it like that. It was me against them being society in general. Ended up taking loads of drugs. I had to get out of reality. I couldn't cope with the day otherwise. It was impossible. I was aggressive. Anything I saw immoral, I wanted to attack. And if I could make money shoplifting doing it, I'd do it. And so I ended up in Rochester Prison. When the judge read out the sentence of 2 years probation, I burst into tears and said, you can't let me out. Don't send me out there. I want the 4 years, I didn't want to let go of what I had. That's a pretty dark place to be when you're crying because they're going to let you out of a prison. I knew that I had to sort of reintegrate back into society. You've got to stand up and, try and take whatever steps you can to better the situation that you're in. One day there is light at the end of that tunnel and you can get through this. If I can, I believe anyone can. Felt like a new life was on its way, but I didn't really know what. And then in October 1999, I flew to Peshawar in northern Pakistan. I always found solace in travel. We were walking along and this old man, he blended pomegranates. So I drank this pomegranate juice and it was a crazy feeling. It was almost a instantaneous thought that this has got potential, this juice. I turned around to my friend on the streets, dusty and hot streets of Peshawar, and said, I'm going to make a drink from this. And so I created a drink called Pomegranate, which ended up in every single supermarket in Britain. About a month later, I had a mental breakdown. Well, while I'd gone through that psychiatric scenario, I'd lost, I was CEO and major shareholder of Pomegranate, and when I came out of the hospital, my position was gone and my equity stake in Pomegranate had been diluted. So I effectively lost Pomegranate, so that was quite a loss for me at the time. Felt quite let down by that, but such is life. In April 2007, I was invited to Afghanistan to talk to farmers about growing pomegranates. Being in Afghanistan, there was opium everywhere. Death is being grown, basically. I thought about my mum and my friends that had died and whatever else from heroin, and it was sort of like my whole life sort of flashed before me, and I just thought I've got to do something about this. There's millions of people out there, farming communities, that live in circumstances that resonate with me, and I see the trauma within them from their own circumstances. I always believed that there was a possible change from opium and what that could do for people's lives, people that were looked at as insignificant, as was I. Put together a team, created a foundation called Plant for Peace, social impact initiative designed to help as many insignificant smallholding farmers living in conflict, whether that's internal or external, around the world. We've planted about just over 2 million trees at the moment in Afghanistan and done quite considerable things, burning $750 million worth of drugs, developing a 5-country expansion plan, and every single product that comes through that, we use the funds for social impact. Personally, I don't measure success on the size of my bank balance. I sort of measure success on the depth of my soul, and that's sort of who I am. To be able to look back and think, well, it was like chucking a stone in a pond, but the ripples kicked off something that creates something phenomenal, amazing, and affects all those people's lives. I wouldn't change anything in my life, you know, and because I had to go through what I had to go through to become who I've become. And I hope that, you know, the story that I've shared today can help millions of people out there, you know.